MLB futures. The shortest odds to win the 2011 World Series are the Philadelphia Phillies at +361, the Boston Red Sox at +467, and the New York Yankees at +782. So guys, do you think that these teams are legitimate favourites in the upcoming season? Let's start with you, Indian Cowboy.
Hey Judy, yeah, I actually follow the American League really closely. But as far as so we'll start with my comments on the Phillies real fast. It's their lineup is actually one of the best that I've ever seen as far as the rotation is concerned. It reminds me of the old early '90s Braves, with the like of Halladay, Cliff Lee, Roy Oswalt, Cole Hamels, Joe Blanton. We're talking about 6 guys with 20-win seasons. That's pretty impressive. On top of that, 3 Cy Young Awards and 13 All-Star appearances between all of them. So it's a very, very strong lineup. The only thing that worries me about their World Series hopes is their offense. Ryan Howard doesn't have the same protection around him without Chase Utley. So that's a little worrisome. But having said that, given this great lineup, they only need to score a few runs. It really does remind me of the early Braves. So as far as the Phillies are concerned, I think they're a great value just because of their rotation, barring any injuries. As far as the Yankees are concerned, I'm not a believer in the Yankees this year. I think CeCe is going to continue to pitch strong and have a great year, but I think that division has gotten stronger. I think A.J. Burnett is untrustworthy. He struggled a lot last season as well, and also, this is Phil Hughes, similar to his sophomore season. So Phil Hughes, I think, had like a 2.34 ERA in the beginning of last year. But since then, he's had over a 5 ERA going from May, June, and July. So he's really struggled. So having said that, with A.J. Burnett being inconsistent, with Phil Hughes possibly being inconsistent as well, I think both those guys need to have an incredible year for them to actually do well this year. So I don't see the Yankees doing as well. But the Red Sox, great value in the Red Sox, an improved lineup. Ellsbury, Pedroia, Crawford, Ortiz. We had a horrible slow start last year. I think he'll have a much better start this year. And Saltalamacchia. And then that Red Sox rotation is great. Lester, Buchholz, Beckett. Lackey had a 4.6 ERA, his highest in a long time. He's bouncing back. Wakefield continues to be consistent, and Daisuke's on a bounce back here. So having said all that, I think it's going to be I think the value lies in the Phillies and Red Sox mainly. So.
Brilliant. What do you think about all this, Robert? Do you agree or disagree?
For the most part, I definitely agree. Me personally, I think that the odds are right based on for the books, where the money is going to come in. These are the 3 most high-profile teams, or the 3 big money teams, so this is where the books are going to take all their actions. That being said, I don't think that there's a great amount of value on any one of those teams at those odds. Just when you consider the volatility of the baseball betting market in general, only getting like 4-1 on a team to win the World Series really aren't that great of odds. I mean, just look at last year. We had a San Francisco-Texas World Series. How many years in the past decade has there been kind of a surprise winner out of the National League? Also, how many times in the past decade has the team that's made the biggest splash in free agency actually lived up to the hype? It normally doesn't happen. I agree that the Yankees are not a very good value bet. I don't even think that they're going to win their division. If I absolutely had to put money on one of the 3, I guess I would take Boston, getting about 4.5 to 1, because I do think that they're the best team. But just in general, as kind of a betting theory, I think that these are all real low odds plays, and just not. I think that your money could be better served elsewhere than these types of futures bets.
And then, okay, speaking of elsewhere, you're probably talking about winning team props and things like that, but are there any long shots that you might consider to be valuable? Let's start with you this time, Robert.
I think Detroit is a team that's primed for kind of a bounce-back year. Detroit or Chicago, whoever kind of wins that AL Central, I think is going to be kind of a tough out. So those are some teams that I like. But from my perspective, again, I know we're here to talk about futures, and I can talk about futures all day, but when it comes to betting World Series winners, that's not really the way that I approach my futures handicapping and how I approach value on teams. I more use those World Series odds to give me a read on who's going to have value in the day-to-day. Someone like Milwaukee has long odds to win the World Series, so that lets me know that they could be a good value play on the day-to-day. So I don't know. I just take a little bit different approach to utilizing these World Series odds in my long-term and short-term handicap.
I was going to ask about that, actually. Good. Indian Cowboy, do you think that there's any long shots that stand out that catch your eye?
I think the the Tigers in some ways, but I also agree with Robert. I think the White Sox are in for a good bounce back here. I had them pegged. You know, at the end of the day, Ozzie Guillen is a great coach, and he's one of those managers that's able to get his teams up for certain years. But having said that, I agree with Robert. I'm not a huge fan of World Series prop bets because exactly what he said, like the Giants. How would you figure the Giants to go to the World Series or the Rangers? I do think that futures, meaning that total number of wins, is probably the way to go, and that's the same with the NFL as well, total games. I hate to even pick Super Bowl winners as well because I just think you just never know in the course of the year. So honestly, I'm not a huge fan of World Series bets, but I agree with Robert. I mean, the chance of you getting a World Series winner and picking it right, it's almost like a deadpan winner. For example, putting money on the Pirates. I mean, they have great odds, but you might as well go buy yourself something with it because it's not going to happen. Um, so at the end of the day, I think if you're really looking for a value bet for the World Series, you can look at the White Sox just because Ozzie Guillen has a way of getting his guys up. But in general, I think the better bets are at the over/under for the total wins.